Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
And welcome back to my podcast, Esme's Country Life. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how I managed to get top grades at school while having dyslexia. And I thought this would be a really interesting topic to talk about because I know at a lot of meet and greets I've done, I've met people who have also said that they're dyslexic, or even if you're not dyslexic, I actually came to the conclusion the other day. I was filming a video for the RSPCA and I had all this script that I had to learn, and it kind of made me realise I'm doing the same kind of study tips that I learned when I was at school that I'm using in my day-to-day, everyday life, like to remember scripts or, with life, you're always learning. Maybe you're a doctor and you're learning about new illnesses and new medicines that you've got to learn. Maybe you work in marketing and you have a new client and you need to learn about their product. There's lots of different ways like in life, but I know I have a lot of a younger audience that are maybe in school or at university still. So I thought I would talk to you about my study tips, things that really helped me in school, focus, take in information, and also for my horsey people out there, I have a lot of tips also for remembering dressage tests or show jumping courses. But before we begin, I just want to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of the podcast, Redpost. Redpost is an equestrian and country store based in the UK, but they also ship all over the world. And now is your time, as the competition season is starting, to look at your competition gear, maybe your breeches or your white jumpers are not looking so white anymore. Also, who decided that white or cream or yellow breeches or jumpers was the colour to wear for competition? I know, actually, pretty sure British my mouth is not working today. I'm pretty sure British dressage now allow you to wear black jodhpurs or breeches for competition, which I think is very cool. Anyway, but yes, competition whites, maybe your competition gloves, they're a little bit worn, maybe they got a hole in. Do you know where you can get all of your competition gear? Redpost Equestrian. So go and check them out at redpostequestrian.co.uk. Anyway, let's get into today's podcast episode. I also thought it'd be quite interesting because I do have an international audience of talking about the UK's kind of school system a little bit, because it is actually very different compared to a lot of different countries, especially as I remember being absolutely mind blown finding out that I'm pretty sure in America, that part of your final grade is down to participation. So if you put your hand up in class, that kind of thing, because in the UK, it is cutthroat. So the main sort of exams that I'm going to be talking about are GCSEs, which are the exams that you do when you're 16, when you finish kind of high school, secondary school, whatever you want to call it. And then also A-levels, which are the exams that you do when you're 17, 18, which you do in your kind of final years of education. Because that's what I did. I know some people, they go and do apprenticeships or that kind of thing once they've done their exams at 16. But in the UK, you kind of go to a place called Sixth Form College. Some people call it college, some people call it Sixth Form. But basically, it's the last 2 years of education when you're 16 to 18, where you do your stressy exams. I actually have a lot of friends that have been to university, and they said that A-levels was more difficult than doing their degree. So there we go. Also, I know that the time that I am recording this podcast episode it is coming up to exam season. So if you have exams coming up, then I wish you all the best. And if you don't have exams and you're like me and you feel very old, then I hope life and work is going well. Maybe you have a big presentation coming up and some of these memory tricks could help. But anyway, let's dive into it. First off, thought I would talk about being dyslexic a little bit, because that obviously is going to affect how I learn, how I take in information. So at school, I think at primary school, I always just thought I was a little bit stupid, because I remember they weren't sort of tests that you would study for or revise for. Also, I'm going to say the word revise a lot. And I know for my international audience, I don't think that's a word that people use very often, or revision. That's what we normally call it in England or the UK. And that's where you kind of revise, or you look over your notes and try and take in that information. So I'll try and say studying, because I know that's what a lot of people normally say. But anyway, yeah, these are the sort of tests where you wouldn't really study for. It would just be kind of like a test for the teacher and for the school system to see where you are, where you're at, what sort of level you're doing, how much the school system has kind of taught you. And I remember doing these tests being fairly young. I'm pretty sure you did some when you were about 7, 8 maybe. And I remember getting it back and being like, oh, your reading level is 2 years younger than you should be. And I remember feeling really down about it and feeling really stupid that some of my friends were like, oh my goodness, I have the reading age of a 10-year-old that's like 2 years older than me. I'm so grown up. I read like chapter books and things. And I remember sitting there being like, what's wrong with me? Why do I find reading so difficult? And I remember I would do reading with my mum and dad at home, like part of our homework. We'd have like a little storybook, and over the weekend we'd have to read it, or read certain pages and write in our little book how much we'd read. And I remember my dad's like chuckling in the background. He's like, oh, back in the days. Also, a little bit of nostalgia for my British peeps, Biff, Chip and Kipper. They were the days. Those were the storybooks that were brilliant. Also, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. I know that wasn't like a school book, but can't go wrong with The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Anyway, and the Gruffalo and all those friends. God, they're so fun. Sorry, it's just bringing me back to my childhood. Anyway, I remember when it was like mum and dad would come over and be like, okay, Esme, it's time for your at-home reading. I would get so anxious about it, because I knew that I wasn't very good at it and I struggled to read. I remember reading with my mum and just turning around and saying to her, like, Mum, why is my throat itchy? Like, that's such a random thing, but it's because I was so like worked up and anxious, because I did find it difficult. And obviously as I got older, I found things a little bit easier. I think, honestly, when I think about learning to read when I was younger, I don't think I actually learnt to read. I think I've just memorized a lot of words. And I think that's the best way to describe it. I also, like, my brain, I'm one of those people where I see different kind of letters or different numbers as colours. So that actually really helped me when learning to read. I don't know why or don't know how. But I was like, oh, it's that letter and that's that letter. And oh, okay, that kind of makes up that word. Things that also I found helped me a lot at school was using a ruler or a different, like a piece of paper, and it would kind of keep me on the line. I often found I would be halfway through reading a sentence and then I'd be jumping about, or I'd miss out a word as I was reading. And often, I think when I was younger, I was so stressed and so worried about reading each word and sounding out each letter. By the time I read a whole sentence, I wouldn't be able to tell you what that sentence was, because it took me so long. So I think that was one of the reasons why my love for reading definitely came later in life, or later in my childhood, just because I found it quite stressful and quite difficult. But with a lot of hard work, I managed to get there, and I did manage to start reading chapter books, so all good. But yes, also another thing that really helped me, that my friends thought was a little bit weird and a little bit bonkers that I did at school, was I had a trusty rubbing out highlighter pen. Now this saved me so much at school, because I had a lot of teachers that were really strict. They were like, you're not allowed to use any gel pens or highlighters or that kind of thing. You must like underline the date and title with a pencil, not with a pen. Like, they were very strict with that. So what I would do is, if I had like a question sheet, I found the top kind of like, I would use a highlighter pen to highlight the words that was most relevant. There we go. See, the dyslexia kicks in sometimes, even when I'm doing a podcast episode. Sometimes, yeah, the most relevant words I would highlight. And then if I had a teacher that was really kind of iffy about me highlighting things, I'd use my pen and I'd rub it out. This is a weird tip, but if anybody has kind of exams coming up and they're used to writing in a rubbing out pen, that is one thing that you weren't allowed to use for exams in case it got rubbed out, the exam paper. So I was so used to using my rubbing out pen, because obviously I would make quite a lot of mistakes and have to rub it out and then rewrite it. That when actually it came to doing exam season, I realised, I'm not used to holding like a normal pen, like it was just a different thing. So get used to holding the pens for exams, because oh my goodness, there is a lot of writing if you're coming up to exam season. Anyway, that's like a very obscure little tip, but there we go. Next up, I'm gonna move more towards secondary school, because I think that's when studying and things became more important and you had more exams. At my primary school, I don't know, maybe my primary school was just very, very chilled. I mean, it was in special measures for a lot of the time that I was there, which meant that the education standards were kind of flagged up with how good they were. But anyway, because I just went to, my local little primary school, which was great. I had great fun, but I think they didn't catch my dyslexia as quickly as they probably should have, and lots of things maybe slipped under, but I was young and I was having fun, so I turned out all right in secondary school, so all was well. But I do remember in my final years of primary school, actually in primary school you do have exams, and I find it really funny because they're called SATs or SATs, and in America I'm pretty sure you guys have SATs kind of in your final years of education when you're like almost an adult, and I find it funny that in the UK we have our SATs or SATs when you're 11. So, or sometimes some people call it the 11 plus. I remember for the secondary school that I went to, I had to do an exam to get in. So I remember my mum and dad like, oh my gosh, there were so many occasions when me and my dad were doing maths at the kitchen table and there were tears running down, not just my face, but my dad's face as well, because he was like, how have you not got it yet? And then when I'd finally get it, there'd be tears of joy because it would be like, finally, she understands algebra. Like, my dad is just crying behind the camera now. It was like the PTSD of doing maths with me. I mean, tell you what, it's trained me up for today when we come along creative differences and we have arguments with that. Although, yeah, I wouldn't say they were arguments. I'd say they're creative differences. But anyway, that's also trained me up for life. I tell you what, school, there's a lot of character building. Anyway, 2 exams. So my secondary school, from year 7, which is when you start secondary school, which is at the age of 11, you have to do end of year exams at the end of each year. And the first year, I was not used to doing this, but I did all right. I did decent. I also found when I first started secondary school, because we had to kind of do an exam to get into the school, a lot of it also was for the school to decide what class to put you in, at what level, how much you already knew, what things they needed to teach you. So that was very good. So yeah, SATs, you don't really need to don't get too stressed about them. Obviously, you want to do well, but a lot of it is just down to your secondary school deciding what class you get put in. Because I remember when I started secondary school, I was put in the bottom math set, the bottom English set. Maybe that was the dyslexia. Maybe that was how much my primary school had or hadn't taught me. But anyway, so a lot of that, yeah, don't stress too much. And I remember after that, I worked very hard at secondary school. I'm not gonna, be like, I'm gonna say it how it is, because I know that, I don't know, I don't know. Some people, if you say that you work hard, they're like, oh, you work hard, like that kind of thing. But I worked my butt off in secondary school because I kind of realised, okay, in the next few years I'm going to have exams that are a bit more serious. So I took my end of year exams actually very seriously because, because I did so well in my end of year exams, because I worked so hard, each year I actually managed to move up a math set and move up an English set. So it goes to show that if you have dyslexia, and even if you find things more difficult, if you work really hard, you can get there, but you will have to work twice as hard as everyone else. So I remember when I got to GCSE level, so this is about 15, 16, when you're about to take your exams, I remember, I also, for some context here, in the UK, for GCSE exams, which are the exams you do at 16, I was the last year group to do them where the grading was with letters. So if you want to know I can't actually really remember what I got. I think I probably can actually, but I don't want to be like, well, I got this and then I got this. But in my GCSEs, I did do well. And I don't want to sound like a show off, like, guys, I did it so well. But it was a long time ago now. But I need to tell you what subjects I did actually, because this is one thing that, so at my school, maths and English were compulsory. I think like everywhere in the UK, you do have to get your maths and your English GCSE. And then also, often some sort of science is compulsory. So you can do single science, which is a little bit of all three sciences. You can do double science, or I did triple science, which meant that I did biology, chemistry, and physics. So, because I was like, I want to be a vet. That's one of the things that I wanted to work so hard. Also, one of my biggest motivators for working so hard at school was I want to have lots of ponies and horses when I'm older. So I'm going to work really hard at school so I can have lots of ponies and horses and get a good job so I can pay for said ponies and horses. So if you need a motivator and you love horses, that's a good motivator to have. So yes. And then I also, the other subjects that I did, which some people might say is a little bit random, I did geography. Geography was one of my favourite subjects at school because you were kind of learning about the world and the earth. And also a lot of it that I found really fascinating was also how a lot of social kind of geography, where you were learning about different countries and cultures and things that were going well and not, and that kind of thing. I found that really fascinating. And then the other two subjects that I did was French and Spanish, which I really enjoyed languages. I don't know what it is, but for some reason languages did come quite easy to me. I think my mum's very good at languages, so maybe that's why. But also, but being dyslexic, I really disliked anything with a lot of heavy writing. So things like history, that had a lot of writing, so I didn't take that in the end. Geography did have quite a lot of writing, but because I found it so fascinating, it was worth it in the end. Art, I decided not to take just because I'd heard a lot of people who said that there was just so much coursework and it felt like they were always doing art. And also it's a subject that's a little bit more specific depending on who the examiner is. It's a little bit more difficult to mark, so I thought I might be able to get a better grade in languages. But I don't know, part of me kind of regrets not taking art because I am a very artistic and creative person. And I guess I've managed to continue that with the job I do. I'm trying to think of what other subjects that I really enjoyed at school. I quite enjoyed DT, but I always got told off for making my thing too pretty and not making it kind of technical enough. So DT is design and technology, so like woodwork, that kind of thing. And yeah, ICT or computer science, I was actually all right at, but I thought, that sounds a bit too mathsy for me, so I didn't do that in the end. I'm trying to think of other things that my school had that I did. But anyway, they were the main kind of subjects that I did, if you want to know. And then, actually, if you want me to sound really old, I was the first year group to do the new GCSEs for maths and English. So instead of just, giving us all the new exams straight away, throwing us in the deep end, we were kind of the guinea pig or the experiment year group where, we say year group in the UK rather than grade, like I'm in grade 7 or that kind of thing. So if I say, I was in this year, that's what I mean. Anyway, so yeah, we were the first year to do English and maths with the new ones, and they basically made them more difficult. So I was kind of lucky that I got to do the easier GCSEs, but it did mean that when I did the leap from GCSEs to A-levels, oh my gosh, that was like jumping over a canyon. That wasn't just a leap, that was just a plummet, it felt like. Anyway, so now we're on to revision, memorizing tips. So one thing that I would say is good to know what sort of learner you are, because there are lots of different types of learners out there. So some people are an auditory learner, which means that they learn best when somebody talks to them or explains that thing to them. So for example, if you're that type of learner, I found with languages, that was the thing that really helped me. So what I would do is we would have like speaking exams where you would need to speak in the language. What I would do is I'd get my phone out and I would record like a voice memo, and I would record a voice memo of me reading out my kind of speaking, and then I would like listen to it on the bus on the way to school, and that really, really helped me. I would say for other subjects, I probably wasn't as much of an auditory listener. I would say writing was the thing that really helped me. So if I ever need to learn a script or learn something, I like to write it out. Even with today's world where everybody has computers and types things up. I mean, some people like to type things, but I am old school. I like to write things down. So if I need to learn something, I will literally just write lines, and that really, really helps me. I also find for me personally, when I'm trying to learn a script for example, when I'm like presenting, when I was doing stuff with the RSPCA the other day, I like to write things, or when I'm doing a voiceover as well, I write it out and then I'll read it out. But I do really weird like little like notes, and I think it's just finding how your brain works. And I think once you've got that sorted, it will help you forever in life if you need to learn anything else. So for me, when I'm doing my little voiceovers, there will be certain words that I will highlight in my notes app, and there'll be certain words, certain ways where I'll, like, if I need to breathe at a certain point, I will do like a massive paragraph and be like, Esme, you need to breathe here, which I know most people aren't doing voiceovers in their world or life or job, but for remembering things, sure does help figuring out how your brain works. Another way is reading. Some people find reading really helps with their brain take in information. And my mum, bless her, she really did help me a lot while I was doing my exams, because she knew that I, as someone who's dyslexic, struggled to read. So she would sit down with me quite a few evenings and she would actually read the textbook to me, which really helped me because I would not only hear her voice, but I would then look at the page and see the words as well. So if you do, obviously this depends on the life that you live, and if you have some support, extra support, that really did help me. Also, if you are doing like an English exam, something that also really helped me was doing immersive reading, which is where you read the book, but you also listen to the audiobook at the same time. And that's something that really helped me focus and really helped me take in that information. Even, when I was sitting on the bus to school, I would listen to the audiobook, and that would also really help me take in the information as well. So that's a little top tip for my auditory people, or if you're somebody that really struggles to focus while reading a book. I find, immersive reading, some people absolutely hate it because they're like, oh my gosh, it's too much, or the person's reading too slow. But I find if you're dyslexic, that is something that personally really helped me get into reading and helped me read as well. So,
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre a la para llevarte ofertas antes del cut-off. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
So we've done visual. Visual. We haven't even done that. That is my main jam. I am such a visual learner. As I said before, I like to use different pens, like different topics I would do in a different color, and then it would help me remember that topic and those words. And in my revision notes or my study notes, I would do little drawings to help me remember. For example, I remember in my A-level biology, so exams that you did at 18. I didn't even tell you what I did for my A-levels. I did biology, chemistry, and geography. Halfway through my doing that, I did realise that chemistry was not for me, but I managed to, chug on, push on going, and I did manage to pass my exams, so all was well. But looking back on it, that was probably a bit too much for me academically. But anyway, so yes, I remember in biology, I was learning about the Krebs cycle, and I just remember the word Kreb just reminding me of crabs. So I draw little crabs on my page, and that would help me remember, because I remember my little pictures of crabs. Really random, but stuff like that really helps me. I remember when I was learning to spell, I still to this day, because spell it out when I'm writing, big elephants can add up easily. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people that also have like little things like that for when they were learning to spell. I think I'll do the same with people, but I think that one I remember my teacher coming up with some really wacky ones. So yeah, being a visual learner really helped me. Also, figuring out like what helps. So some people, they love bullet points. I'm also a bit of a bullet point person. I love doing mind maps where you put like the subject in the middle in a little bubble, and then you do a little stalk coming off, and then you write something, and then that might have little bubbles coming off as well. So mind maps really helped me, making it in lots of different colours. Also, there are a lot of different, if you're somebody that again likes something of somebody explaining it to you, there are lots of different resources on YouTube to really help. So if you're struggling to learn about something, there are lots of, I remember for science, there was a guy, I don't know if he still does stuff, but called Free Science Lessons, and his stuff was really, really good. Remember English, there were a lot of English kind of study YouTubers. Also, I was one of those people, I think because I'm dyslexic, I cannot listen to music while I'm working. It really, especially if the music has words in, it really distracts me. I'll start writing down like the lyrics of the songs. So if I did listen to any music while I'm studying, it would always be, I'm pretty sure there's like a constant live stream on YouTube of like lo-fi beats, and it doesn't have any words in, and sometimes I would listen to that and there would be like a little animation of a girl studying, and I don't know what it was, but that would always make me feel so motivated. Like even though it was a little cartoon, just seeing somebody else like going down doing their work, that would really help me. Also figuring out what sort of environment that you want to study in. I could never like study in my bedroom. For me, my bedroom was my chill down time. It was where I would rest. It would be where I would go to sleep. So please, if you can try not to, don't study on your bed, because that should be your place of rest. For me, I am very much a person, like when I'm in my bed, I am sleeping. I try not to do any other things in my bed. Like I read my book. Sometimes I, might watch a little bit of telly as I fall asleep, but I don't just, sit on my bed in the middle of the day on my phone. If I do that, it's on the sofa in the living room. But yeah, trying to find somewhere quiet and somewhere where you can be. I found also studying at home a little bit difficult if there were other people in the house moving around, the telly was on, my mum was hoovering or vacuum cleaning, I don't know, something like that. I would find it difficult. So I actually found going to my local library was a really good place, because other people would be there, they would be working, so that again kind of put me in that study motivation, kind of like, oh yeah, I'm here to learn my stuff, get on the grind. But also it was a quiet environment as well, where I felt like I wasn't at home, I had no distractions. Also, your phone can be very distracting. I was very lucky that all these short format platforms like TikTok, they weren't really a thing, and I feel like that definitely has decrease people's attention spans and can also be very distracting, and you can go on it for 5 minutes and actually an hour has gone by. So I actually still today, and I think it's mainly because social media is my job, so sometimes I'll go on to post something and then I'll get distracted and I will spend time on it. So I actually have timers on my phone that I can't, after 10 minutes it's like Esme, you need to get off these apps now, bye. So I think that's actually a really healthy and a really good thing to do. There's also lots of different apps for time management that you can get, where I'm pretty sure I'd never really used them, but I had a friend that absolutely loved them. I'm pretty sure there's one called like Time Tree or that kind of thing, where it locks you out of all of your social media apps for a certain time period. And that's really, I just found setting like a normal timer. I'm one of those people, I found short, sharp bursts really helps me. So I found also first thing in the morning when I'd wake up while I was eating my breakfast, I would look through my notes, and then last thing in the evening before I go to bed, I would look through my notes. And apparently they have done scientific tests, or anyway, this is what my mum would tell me, that if you look at your study notes first thing in the morning, last thing at night, it just helps re-put that information into your brain. Take that with a pinch of salt, that's what my mum told me, but I'm pretty sure it is true. I remember the teachers telling me that as well. But anyway, so short, sharp bursts. So for me, I would find that I would get to the stage where I would get what I call study sour. And I also get this today when I'm editing. My dad and I, we always say, okay, I'm getting a little bit editing sour now. I'm going to go and make a cup of tea. Would you like one? And I think that's so important. I think your productivity after a certain amount of time can really decline, and just having like a little 5-minute break, get outside, go and have a stretch, just take in some fresh air. Try not to go on your phone either. I found when your brain's trying to like process all this information that you've been taking in, if you go straight into your phone and look at loads of rubbish, then it's not going to help your brain take in that information. So be mindful, sit outside, maybe listen to the bird song. I mean, if it's England and it's really raining, then have a little stretch. Also, I quite like to little yoga break. Actually, you can watch little 5-minute yoga videos, and I mean I have quite a bad back, so I found when I was sitting at a desk all day writing away, having a little stretch, it would help me. Obviously, don't do that in the middle of the library, because you are going to get some weird looks if you start doing downward dog in the reptile book section. But anyway, moving on. But yeah, I found little breaks like that really, really helped me. Also, another thing with Little Bit Often, I found, especially when I started learning my GCSE syllabus or my A-level syllabus, was after every evening when I got home from school. Obviously, it goes without saying, do your homework. But also when I was doing the homework, I would write a flashcard, because you would kind of learn like a new topic with each lesson, and I would do my revision notes as I went along. The last thing you want to do is get to the Easter holidays, when you go back to school, your exams start, and then realise, oh my goodness, I've done no revision notes. I'm going to have to do revision notes for everything. If you can try and make sure that after every lesson you really understand it, and if you don't, ask your teacher. If your teacher says, no, I'm not going to help you at lunchtime, be like, well, you didn't teach me well enough. That's like, honestly, that their job is to teach you. So if you don't understand something, at the end of class, go and talk to them, say, I didn't understand this, could you maybe re-explain it? And if that makes you feel silly, don't, because it's much sillier to get to the end of the year and be like, oh, I don't understand any of that. If you go right after the lesson, or at the end of the day, or at break time or lunchtime, go and find a teacher and say, hey, there was this one bit that I didn't understand, could you just quickly go over it with me? I'm sure they'll be able to explain it to you faster than you know. And also, if you don't understand, you could always go and ask your friend. If your friend doesn't understand it as well, you can go together, which me and my friend actually did a few times. Would go at like lunchtime, be like, miss, sir, what's this? We don't really understand it. And I'm sure they will help you. So, and also, if you don't understand it and your friend doesn't understand it, then it's not silly. They probably haven't explained it properly, because two of you don't understand it. And also, if you don't understand it but your friend does understand it, then they can explain it to you. So there we go. Also, one thing that also really helped me when it came to studying and learning is the phrase, if you can teach it to somebody else, then that means that you know it. And I think that is a really good thing, because if you can't teach somebody else, you can't explain it to somebody else, then you obviously don't know the stuff well enough. So that is a good thing. I remember going to my grandparents, be like, would you like to have some fun facts about chemical reactions and things like that? But it really, really does help. If you do have a friend or a family member that can help you with the flashcards as well, because I would sometimes be that person, be like, oh, I knew that, but I wouldn't exactly say what was on the back. No, Esme, you need to make sure you know exactly what's on the back of that flashcard, because you won't have them in the exam. So there we go. I've got even today, I've done my little notes on my book to make sure I don't forget anything. I don't know if you can see, I've even highlighted things. So there we go. I've done my little bullet points. I did miss out one of the types of learning, but I feel like it's called kinesthetic, which is basically when you're doing things. So maybe for example, I'll do it for science, because I did a lot of science. Instead of like reading or listening, it's actually doing things. So by doing the experiment, it really helps you take in that information. So that's another one. I feel like that's a more difficult one when it comes to the stages of learning, because obviously if you're at home or in the library, you can't really do a science experiment or actually do something. Although I'm one of those people, maybe this is my personality type, but I'm one of those people, if you're given instructions, I'm like, I'll just see how it goes. And then when I get stuck, look at the instructions, which is definitely not what you're supposed to do. But anyway, and then I think that is pretty much everything on my little study tips to-do list. Try and focus as well when you're in lessons. I think I was one of those kids that probably should have had some sort of fidget toy, because I have a funny story for you all. I was that person that would swing on their chair, and there would always be, the teachers would always have the same story, but like, I had a child in my class that was swinging on their chair and then they fell off and they cracked their head open. I think that's just something that's in the teacher manual that every teacher gets told. But anyway, I think it's one of those things that I didn't even realise I was doing. I just end up be swinging on my chair or playing with my pencils or that kind of thing. And one day I was swinging on my chair, and as I was swinging on it, I was on two legs. I'm just saying, I've got good balance, you know. I never fell off my chair when swinging on it. Please do not swing on your chair. This is a disclaimer. Do not do it. I didn't really realise I was doing it anyway. And then do you know what happened? The back legs of the chair obviously was not designed for holding all of my weight. So what happened? Both back legs, I think this was quite an old chair, both back legs collapsed. So I didn't fall off my chair from swinging on it. The chair actually broke. Like, the legs snapped. And when I was at school, my school uniform, the girls wore kilts. So if you don't know what that is, you know, the Scottish kind of tartan fabric that you wrap round yourself, that. And it was a skirt. And I think I was in like maybe year 9 or year 10. So it was at the stage where probably my skirt was getting a little bit small for me. But I had a new school uniform next year. And my parents were like, we're going to try and, you know, keep the skirt going for as long as possible so we don't have to buy a new one and then buy a new one the next year as well. So anyway, I ended up falling back off this chair as it collapsed. Legs went up in the air. Everyone saw my knickers. And it was in the middle of my English lesson. And it was very embarrassing. So this is a note to you guys: do not swing on your chair, and yeah, unless you want people to see your knickers and really embarrass yourself, which I'm sure you don't. And to the boys also, don't do it. Your trousers might rip. I don't know, people might still see your underwear. Anyway, and on that note, we're going to finish today's podcast episode off there. If you guys have any study tips, leave them in the comments below. Help each other out. It's a difficult time with exams, school, uni, whatever you're doing. Even my friend who's a nurse, she is fully grown adult and she's got exams coming up because she's trying to, you know, move up the ranks in nursing. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are in life, some people go to university later in life or college or do extra education for certain jobs. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are, if you've got any tests coming up, best of luck. Go and smash them. But also, don't put too much pressure on yourself. If it's the night before the exam, like I'm one of those people, I'm a morning person. I know that I work best in the morning, and that's when I would work the hardest. And then in the evening, when it was bedtime, just try and get some sleep, especially if you're worrying and things. Even if you're just lying in your bed, you're resting more than you would be doing something else. So yeah, try not to spend too much time on your phone before bed as well. Just try and relax, go to sleep, and rest up. Anyway, thank you for listening. Also, a huge thank you to Red Post for sponsoring the podcast. If any of you guys have competitions coming up, best of luck with that. Get your competition gear from redpostequestrian.co.uk, and I will see you all next time. Also, leave a little comment, leave a little subscribe to the podcast, because I'm gonna have to be that person, but every time I gotta tell you to subscribe, because that is part of my job. But yes, it really does help out the podcast. So whatever you're listening to, wherever you are, hope you're having a lovely day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.